Hey everybody, welcome to Help Your Math. Today we're going to continue solving equations by factoring. So we have an example here, x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. So in the last video we looked at how we could use the GCF method to kind of start factoring. We can obviously jump straight into it because our equation is already equal to 0. But if we try to use the GCF method here, we see that there's no common factor that we can use, we can pull out to simplify this. So we're going to have to start jumping to another method. Now there are a few ways that you could solve an equation like this, but today we're just going to look at how we could factor and use factoring to solve equations. So thinking through the other methods that we learned of factoring, we know that there's a difference of squares method that follows the formula of, let's see where we can fit this. We have a squared minus b squared, that we could rewrite that as a plus b times a minus b. If you need a refresher on that, you can go back through. We've got some videos on that, but we'll use this idea here. So we see that our a in this instance, our a squared, let's say, is equal to x squared, and that our b squared is equal to 4. So this means that when we go to solve these, that our a would be equal to x, and then our b would be equal to 2, because 2 times 2 equals 4. So now let's rewrite this expression here. Let's rewrite that using this difference of squares form. So we'll say that our a, like we said, was x, and our b is 2. So we have a plus 2 times, in this case it's x, or x plus 2 times x minus 2. And then again, we set that back equal to 0. Because we're essentially we're saying that we have a squared minus b squared here. So we're just substituting this in. They're equivalent here. So we're just using this form to rewrite. And then we're setting everything back to 0 again. And so now we see that we have the format that we need to start solving each new expression for the variable in that expression. So remember that anything times 0 equals 0, so x plus 2 could be equal to 0, or x minus 2 could be equal to 0. Just subtract 2 from both sides. Those 2's will cancel out, and we have x equals to negative 2. Or we can add 2 to both sides. These 2's will cancel out. We have x is equal to a positive 2. So again, 2 solutions for this equation, and you can check those answers just by substituting them back in. Let's take a look at another example here. We get a little more tricky with things. I'm going to rewrite this a little bigger just so we can reference it a little easier. This a squared minus b squared equals a plus b times a minus b. Just our difference of squares formula there. Example, let's take a look at another one. We'll have, say, x to the third is equal to 9x. So our first step is we're going to set this equation equal to 0. Let's start by subtracting 9x from both sides. We'll have an x to the third minus 9x is equal to, these will cancel and give us 0. So now we have the difference that we want, but we don't have squares here yet. We've got an x to the third. If this was, say, x squared, we'd be fine, because we know that 3 times 3 is 9. But then we also have another x here, so we've got some things in the way. But we can also see that we've got a common factor of x that can be pulled out of both of these. So let's pull out that x, and now we're left with x squared minus 9x is equal to 0. And now we see that in these parentheses we have the conditions that we need for our difference of squares formula. Check this here. We also have another expression, this x, that we need to account for. We'll get back to that in a minute. First, we need to simplify this a bit further before we can go solving for x. So using this idea here, this difference of squares formula, we'll say that our a squared is equal to x squared and then our b squared is equal to, whoops, left that 9 in there. And our b squared is equal to 9. So that means that our a is equal to x, and then our b is equal to 3. Let's rewrite this over here using this. So we'll bring this x over, and then our x squared minus 9, we're now going to be rewriting with this. It'll become a plus 3 times x minus 3. Oh, that would be equal to 0. And now, finally, we're in a situation where we can really start solving for x. We've got, again, doing the idea that anything times 0 gives you 0. Any of these could potentially be equal to 0. So we don't have two possible situations like before. We've got 3. So we have one where x is equal to 0. We have another where x plus 3 is equal to 0. And our last one is x minus 3 is equal to 0. So we see that x equals 0 is solved for us. Subtract a 3 from both sides, and we find that x could also be equal to negative 3. Or we can add a 3 to both sides here and see that x could be equal to positive 3. Any of these solutions could work. And of course, once you start getting into having many solutions and things get a little more complicated, it's really important that you take these answers that you've gotten and you plug them back into your original equation just to make sure that everything works out.